Welcome to Maritime Pakistan, your gateway to the fascinating world of oceans and the opportunities they present to every one of us. Today's explainer explores naval warfare through the book Fleet Tactics and Coastal Combat. We're going to be diving into the pivotal 5th chapter, World War II, the Sensory Revolution. So this chapter argues that World War II at sea wasn't just about bigger guns or faster ships. Not at all. It was about a fundamental game-changing shift in how navies saw and understood the battlefield itself. Let's get into it. And this quote right here, it just nails it. The real revolution was sensory. The ability to see, to track, to talk to each other over huge distances, even in pitch-black darkness, that changed everything. It wasn't about having the biggest punch. It was about being the first one to see the punch coming. Now, what's really cool is how this whole information war was framed. You have to think of it like a constant duel. On one side, you have your scouting signals. That's you using new tech like radar to find the other guy. But on the other side, you have your controlling signals. That's you using the radio to command your own team. Winning meant you had to be great at both, all while trying to blind and confuse your opponent at the exact same time. And that brings us to the countermeasures. See, it wasn't enough to just have the best gear. You had to play electronic chess. You could try to physically destroy an enemy's antenna. You could jam their radar with noise. You could send out fake signals to deceive them. You could try to hide from their sensors to deny them information. Or, and this was the big one, you could exploit their communications by secretly listening in. This was a whole new layer to combat, fought in total silence. Right at the center of this whole revolution was one single technology, radar. For the first time in history, ships could cut right through the darkness, right through the fog, and spot ships and planes miles and miles away. It was a complete game changer, but, and this is a huge but, simply having this new tool was a very, very long way from actually mastering it. And nowhere was this more obvious than in the brutal night battles of the Solomons campaign. This right here perfectly illustrates the clash. The Americans had the tech advantage, no doubt, with their superior radar. But the Japanese, well, they had this absolutely terrifying weapon, the long-lance torpedo, and they had spent years perfecting the aggressive, well-oiled tactics to use it in the dark. So here's the core of the problem. The U.S. Navy sailed into these night fights using a playbook from a totally different war. They were still using this long, rigid, single-file line of ships, a formation designed for daylight gun duels. At night, this just turned them into a massive, perfect target for those Japanese torpedoes. I mean, they were a 10 times bigger target than if they were just coming straight on. Let's take a look at the Battle of Cape Esperance. On paper, the Americans had this thing won before it started. They had radar, they had total surprise, they were even in the perfect position to cross the T, which is this classic naval maneuver that lets you fire all your guns at once. And yet, because they stuck to that old, rigid formation, what should have been an easy win turned into absolute chaos. This timeline is just painful to read. At 23:25, they spot the enemy at 14 miles range, an unbelievable advantage. But then what happens? 21 minutes of confusion. The admiral, whose own flagship didn't have the new radar, doesn't trust the reports. He orders a turn that puts his own destroyers right between his cruisers and the enemy. By the time they finally open fire, the range is down to 2.5 miles. They completely threw away a 12-mile head start. They won, technically, but just barely. They took damage, some of it from friendly fire. And what's worse, because it was chalked up as a victory, the Navy got seduced into thinking their old tactic, the long gun column, was still good enough. They completely failed to learn the real lesson. Their new radar required a completely new way of fighting. But the lesson wouldn't stick after that messy win. Oh no. It took another full year of getting hammered, of brutal, painful losses in the dark, for the truth to finally sink in. Technology is totally useless if you don't have the right tactics to actually use it. And that finally brings us to the Battle of Vella Gulf. And man, the contrast is just stunning. This is the new formula. No more long, clumsy column. Instead, Commander Frederick Moosbrugger used a flexible plan with 2 small, agile destroyer units. This wasn't just a new tactic, it was a tactic built around radar. So let's break this down. Step 1, use your radar to find them from way out. Step 2, and this is the genius part, fire a huge salvo of torpedoes first, without firing your guns so you stay hidden. Step 3, immediately turn and get out of there, because you know for a fact the Japanese torpedoes are already in the water. Then, your second group comes in for another attack from a different direction. Then, and only then, do you mob up with gunfire. It was brilliant. It maximized the radar advantage and completely neutralized the Japanese torpedo threat. And this was the ultimate lesson they learned in the Solomons. In the dark, the big, lumbering cruiser with its huge guns was not the king anymore. The new king of the night was the nimble destroyer, armed with radar and a belly full of torpedoes. It was about hitting hard and fast, not standing still and slugging it out. But this revolution wasn't just happening on the surface of the water. The same exact principles of detection and information warfare were totally transforming the fight in every other domain, from the skies high above to the dark depths of the ocean. Over in the Atlantic, the ultimate sensory weapon wasn't radar. It was signals intelligence. By cracking the German Enigma code, the famous ultra-secret, the Allies basically got a god's-eye view of the battlefield. They could read the U-boat fleet's mail. They knew where they were, what their orders were, even how much fuel they had left. This let them not just hunt the wolf packs, but steer their convoys completely around them. This intelligence was arguably the single most decisive factor in winning the whole Battle of the Atlantic. And we can't forget the submarine's role here. We often think of carrier battles as being all about planes, right? Well, just look at this number, 15. That's how many aircraft carriers were sunk by submarines. That's almost as many as aircraft managed to sink. It just underscores the incredible power of the unseen predator in this new sensory war. So what's the big takeaway from all this? The sensory revolution of World War II forever blurred the lines. For the first time, a battle at sea could be commanded by someone on shore, hundreds of miles away. Land-based planes became a huge threat to ships far out at sea. What came out of all this was the birth of modern joint warfare, a fused system of land, sea, and air power, all tied together by this invisible web of electronic signals. And that leaves us with a really critical question for today. The lesson of the Solomons campaign is that revolutionary technology is not enough. Without the right doctrine, the right training, and the right tactics to match, a technological edge can be completely wasted, or even become a weakness. So, as we step into this new age of AI, autonomous drones, and cyber warfare, the exact same challenge is staring us right in the face. We hope that you liked today's video. Post your questions in the comment section for future videos.